December 4th, 2024, 6:45 in the morning. Midtown Manhattan. Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, father of two, pulling in $10.2 million a year, walks out of the Hilton Hotel. Investor meeting. Same routine he'd done dozens of times before. He doesn't notice the guy in the hoodie, sitting in the Starbucks across the street. Doesn't notice him stand up. Doesn't notice the gun. 3 shots, 1 to the back, 2 to the leg. Thompson goes down on the sidewalk. The shooter doesn't run. He walks, gets on a bicycle, and disappears into the city like he was never there. And the shell casings he left behind had 3 words scratched into them: delay, deny, depose. This isn't just a murder story. This is the story of how a 26-year-old Ivy League graduate became the most controversial figure in America, and why millions of people weren't sure whether to call him a killer or something else entirely. Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, valedictorian of his high school class, engineering degree from Penn. His grandfather built a real estate empire. His cousin sits in the state legislature. This was not a man who fell through the cracks. Every door was open. He walked through most of them. He worked at TrueCar after graduating, moved to Hawaii, surfed, read, lived what looked, from the outside, like exactly the kind of life people spend years trying to build. So what broke him? Investigators went through his reading history. Ted Kaczynski, books on chronic back pain, books about the collapse of American healthcare. He had spondylolisthesis, a serious spinal condition, and underwent surgery in 2023. Insurance delays followed, wrong diagnoses, months of pain that nobody seemed to take seriously. Friends noticed the shift. He became obsessed, then angry. Then something beyond angry. He wasn't just reading about the system's failures anymore. He was deciding what to do about them. The attack wasn't impulsive. It was, in the truest sense of the word, architecture. Mangione spent months mapping Thompson's routine. The Hilton, the 6:45 a.m. walk to the meeting. He wore a mask and gloves, carried a ghost gun, 3D printed, completely untraceable, fitted with a suppressor, and those shell casings, engraved with 3 words that anyone who's ever fought a health insurance company knows immediately: delay the claim, deny coverage, depose the doctors who push back. Thompson wasn't chosen randomly. He was a symbol. And Mangione wanted absolutely no ambiguity about why he died. For 6 days, the shooter was a ghost. No name, no face. Just a grainy figure on a bicycle, unhurried, calm, dissolving into Manhattan's morning traffic. The NYPD launched one of the biggest manhunts in recent memory. The FBI joined. Thousands of tips came in. Then, a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. A customer recognized him, called the police. In his backpack, the 3D printed gun, $10,000 in cash, fake IDs, and a notebook. 3 pages of handwriting. One passage became the most quoted text of the entire case. And honestly, it's hard to read without feeling something, even if you're not sure what. He wrote that he'd targeted insurance because it checks every box, that these people are the most insulated from the consequences of their actions, and that they were not expecting it. He planned this, studied it methodically, waited. This was not a man who snapped. This was a man who decided. Here's where the case becomes genuinely unlike anything I've covered. Within hours of the shooting, not outrage, celebration. Free Luigi. He did what needed to be done. The first hero of 2024. TikTok videos defending Mangione pulled millions of views. A subreddit hit 50,000 members in 48 hours. A GoFundMe for his defense raised over $500,000. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse chanting his name. Several politicians, sitting members of Congress, acknowledged his actions pointed to something real and broken. A CEO from a different insurance company went on record. "We are all afraid now." For the first time in modern American history, corporate executives were looking over their shoulders, not because of a new regulation, not because of an election, because one 26-year-old with a 3D printed gun and a notebook made them genuinely scared. Mangione faces federal murder charges, life in prison, with the death penalty on the table, plus state charges in New York. His defense has three possible angles. First, mental health. Chronic pain, surgical trauma, a psychological break severe enough to affect criminal responsibility. The problem, and it's a real problem for the defense, is the notebook. 3 pages of lucid, methodical, strategic planning don't read like someone in crisis. They read like someone who made a decision. Second, political framing. Drawing comparisons to Kaczynski, Hinckley, cases where courts and society had to grapple with the line between crime and ideological statement. Third, and the one that keeps prosecutors up at night, jury nullification. In a country where 68% of people say they distrust health insurance, companies finding 12 jurors who will convict without hesitation is not the straightforward exercise it might appear to be. The evidence is overwhelming. Ballistics, fingerprints, DNA, the notebook, the fake IDs, the cash. But the jury pool, that's what scares them. Brian Thompson was a father, a husband. He was walking to a meeting on an ordinary Wednesday morning, and he died on the pavement. Whatever you think of his company, whatever you think of the industry, he didn't deserve that. Luigi Mangione had every advantage a person can have. Education, money, a family that loved him, a future that was entirely open. And he threw all of it away for 3 bullets and a message he needed the world to read. But here's what I can't stop thinking about. In the weeks after the shooting, UnitedHealthcare's stock dropped 5%. Other major insurers quietly began revising their claims policies. Healthcare executives who hadn't mentioned reform in years started giving interviews, not because of protests, not because of legislation, because they were scared. So the question, and there's no clean answer, which is partly why people can't stop talking about this, is whether Luigi Mangione is simply a murderer who deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison, or whether he's something else, something the existing vocabulary doesn't quite cover yet. The trial is coming, and whatever verdict comes out of that courtroom, this case will be studied for a long time, not just for what Luigi Mangione did on a Manhattan sidewalk, but for what the reaction to it revealed about the country he did it in.